Coaches, if you have bored players, it's only going to mean one thing. They're going to leave your tennis program. In today's video, I'm going to show you 5 ways in which I keep my lessons fresh. At the end of this video, head over to mytenniscoaching.com where you'll find free webinars and free articles how to level up your tennis coaching. If you want to take it to that elite level, please check out my mentoring program. Coaches, there's nothing worse than a boring lesson. You're bored, the players are bored. You stood there thinking, what do I do next? What can I play? How can I make this more interesting? And you always resort back to those classic fun games. Jailbreak, jail, cross the river, chicken in hero. The problem with these games is they don't develop players, but it becomes very repetitive. They play the same games each and every week. If you do it for 6 or 7 weeks, week 9, I'm bored, I'm quitting. Today's video, I'm going to share with you my 5 tips, how I keep my lessons fresh, how I keep my retention high, but also how I attract new players because of word of mouth and referrals to my sessions. Number 1 is you have to plan. Each and every session I conduct, I have a plan. I may not write it down in detail like I used to back in the day, but I will have a rough outline. I'll go in there with what tactic and tension I'm going to work on, what possibly technical work I may need to work on, and I'll have an outline of games. I can spot a million miles away when you haven't planned your lesson. You're stalling, you're getting random pieces of equipment out. 1 minute you're working on a forehand, next minute you're working on a serve. The lesson's just disjointed, there's no natural flow. It really hurts the session. 1, it makes you look unprofessional. 2, it's going to drag for the players, and it's going to be quite confusing for the parents when they're sitting at the back. The first thing you need to do is have an outline, have a plan before you step onto court. Tip number 2, have to use equipment. Kids are stimulated by colors, by intrigue, by different shapes and sizes of equipment. You have to stimulate their minds. Kids play stuff like Roblox, Minecraft, bright colors, problem solving. They want a sense of adventure. If your lessons are really, really dull with just a tennis court and a couple of tennis balls, you have to mix it up. You have to bring in lots of different equipment, spots, hoops, lines, cones, football, basketballs, hurdles, frisbees. This week, I have some boxing gloves. You really have to use your imagination to keep these sessions fresh. Tennis is quite a basic game. It's a ball that goes backwards and forwards over a net. But how we present tennis and how we stimulate our players to improve, we can use equipment much better. Tip number 3, maybe controversial. Get the players to input. Why does it always have to be about what the coach wants? Remember, it's not your tennis as the coach. It's the player's tennis. Let the player come up with some ideas. You may give them the outline of the game, but let the player maybe set the space. Maybe let the player change the rules. Maybe let the player choose the equipment. Maybe let the player choose a scoring system or the time frame. Let the players have an input. Not only will you find the players have a lot of value in this and they'll feel respected, and they'll also feel more motivated because it's their game, it's their activity. But also you'll find that they'll come with some great ideas. Quite recently, I did a lesson with a young girl, and we were just messing around at the end of the session. She had a really good session. I said, last 10 minutes is your time. What do you want to do? And she made up this great game, which involved catching the ball on the racket, moving into a good tactical position, and then trying to finish the point off. She called it hot potato. It was such a great little game, and she came up with it in a flash without any problem for me. And it's a game that I'm actually going to use in my new book, which comes out in January. It was so good, and it all came from her mind. And it's not about what you know, it's about getting the best from the player. Let them have a say, let them have an input in the session, let them make their tennis lesson their own. Motivation, confidence, and output. You'll get so much more from your sessions, and you never know, they may come up with games that you will use for the next 10 or 15 years, like the one I'm going to use now, hot potato. Tip number 4 is you've got to research. This is always evolving. I'm still seeing coaches that I've seen coach maybe for the last 5 or 6 years delivering the same session they were doing 6 years ago. It's very rare that I will do the same session that I did 12 months ago because the game is evolving. New research comes out all the time. 10 years ago, I was a direct traditional coach. Today, I sit here as a constraint-based, game-based, open game situation type of coach. My coaching's evolved. My coaching's fresh. If you've been with me for 5 years, I'm teaching you different things that I was 5 years ago. But I take that on my own shoulders. I go to mytenniscoaching.com. I will look at the free articles. I will look at the free webinars. I will take the bits of information that really hit home with me and I'll bring that into my coaching. And the worst thing you can ever say as a tennis coach is, I've always done it that way. This has changed over the last 5, 10 years. If you've been coaching the same way for 10, 15, 20 years, you're in big trouble. Your lessons are stale. Freshen up your lessons by investing in your own personal development. Do some research. And tip number 5, you've got to reflect on your lessons. At the end of every session, I'll come off court and I'll think, yes, did really well here. Wasn't so good there. I've got to make these slight changes. And I've been doing that now for a long time. And I always reflect on my lessons. I very rarely come away thinking that was a perfect lesson. There's always areas of my lessons that I can improve on. And quite recently, I've been filming a lot of my lessons and watching them back. And lessons where I think I've done really well, on reflection, when I've watched lesson back, I've talked too much. I've cut players off. I've been too quick to get in there and teach. I've not praised enough. I've not asked the right questions, or I've worded it slightly incorrectly. But by reflecting on my lesson, going back on court and doing it again, and maybe doing similar things, I bring a different approach. I may ask a question differently. I may set up a drill slightly differently because I've reflected on my previous lessons. And they're not mistakes. It's just progress. It's experience. And there you have it, 5 ways in which you keep your lessons fresh. If you have found value in the video, as always, hit the like button. It'd be really interesting if you leave in the comments down below any ways in which you keep your lessons fresh. And once again, if you want free coaching information, head over to mytenniscoaching.com, look at my free articles, watch my free webinars, and until next time, I'll see you soon.